Welcome back to the channel. My name is Alexander and I'm a guitarist, composer and overall music nerd from Copenhagen, Denmark. And today we're building a rhythm tone using the Friedman amp and one of my own custom impulse responses. Let's check it out. Before we dive into the walkthrough, I just want to let you know that I run a website called composition101.com where you can pick up some awesome Helix preset bundles and impulse responses. All of the relevant links are down in the description. It would be really cool if you would check it out. Also, as with every YouTube video, feel free to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and say hello to me down in the comments, or give suggestions to what tone you would like me to craft next. I really appreciate the feedback and, of course, all of the help that I can get. And lastly, you can of course pick up the preset that I'm going to show you in a minute, as well as the IR that is taken directly from one of my bundles. The link for that is down in the description as well. Let's head over to Helix Edit. Alright, so welcome to Helix Edit. As you can see on the screen right now, again, a fairly simple tone. I like to keep at least my rhythm patches fairly straightforward, also to sort of be compatible with HX Stomp and XH Stomp XL users out there. I don't want to go too crazy on signal change and stuff like that, and also to showcase that you don't really need to go super advanced to have a kick-ass rhythm tone. So for this tone, I thought I wanted to play with an amp that I don't tend to use fairly often, but it's actually, I feel like it's kind of overlooked. The Placater 30, it's called in the Helix, but it is the Friedman amp, which is a sort of, oh, don't crucify me, purists, but a sort of Marshall-ish amp, but of course fairly well known for its tones in Mastodon, for example. They use Friedman amps most of the time, at least as far as I'm concerned, or to my knowledge. And fairly straightforward tone again, kind of similar to many of the tones that I've done here on the channel, but with a few new or different elements, let's say so. So I have the Placater amp, and you can see the settings here, fairly close to default yet again. It just sounded good out of the box. I ticked on all of the extra switches that are on here. I turned the ripple off, bias X at 5.5 and bias at 6.5, just sounds the best to me. Sag all the way off, and I think the rest is fairly default. Sag is of course off as well. And I'm using one of my new custom IRs that you can pick up on my website, composition101.com. I just reworked the entire website, so if you don't want to, if you want to pick up the preset and the IR for free, you can go do that, and you can see how pretty and nice my new website is. And feel free to let me know down in the comments how pretty it is, because it took a while. Maybe I'm bad at building websites, but I'm fairly satisfied with it now. Okay, so the IR, fairly straightforward. It's a Mesa cab yet again, and this time it's Mesa cab 6, mix number 4. So if you purchase the pack or something like that, you know which cab I'm using. All I did in the cab section is that I put the low cut on 100 Hz and the high cut at 10K. Fairly straightforward. Okay, so, and of course it sounds like this. So what I love about the Friedman is that it's hard to describe. It feels thicker in a way where I used the RevGen Purple and the Badong for years, and it's great for modern metal and stuff like that. And the past tone I did with the Vitriol as well, it has this more modern, tight sort of, a lot of clarity and super bright and stuff like that. But sometimes for the heavy, the chucky riffs, it's really cool to have a more sort of thicker and more, we can call it woolly, maybe. It feels like that. It feels warmer and fatter and maybe a bit more, dare I say, vintage or just Marshall-y, right? It has that kind of warmer and more low-end heavy distortion tone or saturated tone, right? And it's really fitting for some styles and of course not for others. But I found a use for it, and it sounded really great. Okay, so I'll stop rambling and get to it. Input gate is on, minus 40 dB, it's changed a little bit, right, and decay all the way down, super standard. Then I went and put on drive pedal, this time the Horizon devices. These are the settings I, sorry, I tend to use most of the time. Attack at 4 and turn up the brightness a little bit and let the rest be. And already, like the distortion pedal should do, low end, tighten up, a bit more bright, right, when we get the nice attack. So without and with. Sounds amazing already. But of course we will tweak it further. So yeah, it's a personal preference. I like the Horizon drive quite a lot, but Tube Screamer or the new pillars or the plumes or whatever it's called in real life is super great as well. So it comes down to personal preference. Okay, so it got noisy, so I put on the Horizon gate as well. And it got really noisy, I can see, because I put the sensitivity all the way up to 9. So we get that nice and tight. And silence, right? Yeah, we like that. Okay, then as I do with many high gain tones, I use the Sonic Drive Studios and put the simple EQ, the string time EQ. Right, so without and with. Right, so you can hear it brings out the string chime or the pick attack, right? These settings just works wonders for me, which is why I use this trick all the time, that I blatantly stole, and I'm not even ashamed of admitting that. Okay, so after the amp and the cab, I tend to do most of the sort of sculpting of the tone, right? So I have 2 EQ blocks. I have the 10-band graphic EQ that I usually use. And I'm using this low and high shelf trick here. And we'll get to the little thing in the end. But the 10-band EQ looks like this. You can feel free to pause. I'm not going to go through all of the settings and bore you with that. But again, this is here where I do most of the heavy lifting in terms of sculpting the tone into exactly what I want. So if you have a different guitar than me, again, this is the Ibanez Iron label with the EMG 85 and 81, super standard. If you have something else, or you most likely pick differently than I do, but you have different gear and stuff like that, this is a great place to sort of compensate for that. If it gets really bright, turn down the 16K or the 8K or something like that, or if you're missing mid-range or whatever it is, pickup-wise, do it here. Or on the amp are the two sort of main points where you can really do some heavy lifting equalizer-wise. But feel free to use this as a starting point if you download the preset from the website. Link in the description. Sorry, of course. Feel free to use this as a starting point. I do for most of my tones, and I sort of tweak it to taste and to the gear that I'm using, or the specific song that I'm gonna play. Right. So you can hear a lot is happening here. Without. All the brightness, right? But didn't quite get bright enough apparently, so I put on the low and the high shelf. Oh my god, it sounds heavy. And playing alone now, it can sound maybe a bit too harsh and feel a bit fishy and stuff like that. But I assure you, when you take it to the mix, when you have a bass player, you have a second guitarist, maybe you have synthesizer backtracks and all kind of shit like we do, and drums and vocals, the guitar is gonna need to be a little brighter than you might think. So that is the reasoning why I ended up here, because now to me it sounds a bit on the bright side as well. But when I took it to rehearsals and I played with all of the others, this ended up being the moves that I went with. Then lastly, as I did in the previous video as well, I have come to the habit of putting a LA Studio comp in the end. Same reasoning as last time. If you followed me for a while, you know that I used to put my compressor in front of the distortion pedal. And I had this issue recently where I started hearing the sounds from my hands moving across the fretboard quite a lot. Maybe I have just become sloppy at playing guitar. Could also be that. But I kind of solved it by moving the compressor to the end. And the reasoning for having it before the drive pedal back in the day were to have more sort of playability, not to fight the strings so hard, and be able to play all of the 6th fret without having to really dig in. But at the compromise of having some of the more subtle noises kind of boosted into oblivion, right? And I think I have found a kind of middle ground with the compressor in the end now. Sorry for my shitty playing, but you get the gist. Again, we tend to be kind of cheated by it also boosting the volume a little bit, but of course you can just adjust the gain parameter to only hear the compression and not the boost in volume. But for this particular tone, I ended up having it here, and it tightens the whole thing up and makes it sound massive, even though you're playing on your own, right? It sounds so flat now, right? When you hear it or heard it compressed, right? It also tames the palm mutes quite great, right? And you still get all the clarity out of the chords that you want, right? So for me, it's super important to be able to play big, elaborate chords and still hear out or pick out every note, be able to pick out every note. I mean, sorry, English today is it's a special thing. Super important for me to have clarity in the tone and not to have it all sort of washed together in distortion and madness. So this is my first Friedman tone, I think, and I think it was fairly successful. But I'm sure you'll let me know if it sucks or it's great. So, talk to you later.